The Two Crones by Katy Haye. The rendezvous was set for the Two Crones cafe. It wasn't the sort of place Bron would have chosen, but his contact gave him the address, and if it made him feel more secure, Bron was all for it. His job was simple: get the information and ensure handing it over was the last thing his contact ever did. The job was simple because his contact was expecting to hand over the information. He wasn't expecting the double cross and death. The Two Crones Cafe seemed exactly the sort of place you wouldn't expect a double cross. Bron stepped inside, and a bell jangled merrily over the door. He took in the place with a glance. It was faded and twee, and smelled mainly of coffee and cinnamon, but with a slight hint of something Bron suspected was cat. The woman behind the counter was plump, wore her white hair in a bun, and looked faintly like a dumpling, because of course she did. She was exactly what Bron expected in a place like this. Probably the cat was hers too, doing something unhygienic in the kitchen marked off by a scuffed wooden door. She smiled when he walked inside and called, "Tea, duck!" "Please, strong." He wasn't sure he'd drink it, but he'd order it and pay, keep the old biddy happy. Only 3 tables were occupied, and at the back, in the corner, a man was hunched over the crossword. His contact. He might as well call her a crone if the cap fit and all that. While the crone behind the counter poured his tea, he walked up to his contact, setting a hand on the back of the seat opposite. "May I join you? Might be able to help with the crossword." His contact didn't look up, simply straightened the news sheet and harumphed, "It's a free world." Passwords exchanged, Bron sat down. The crone brought his tea. It was a promising shade of orange-brown and wreathed in steam. He decided to risk it. As the crone bustled away and he took a sip, his contact nudged a bag across the floor under the table. It bumped against his knees, and Bron put down a hand to tuck it beneath his chair. Part 1 complete, secure the information. Now he just needed to take care of Part 2. He had several options, but they were in a public place, so he'd make sure it wasn't too messy. Besides, the old biddy looked as though she might faint at the sight of blood. His contact continued to focus on the crossword, chewing on the end of a pencil as he thought about an answer, which gave Bron the perfect idea. Dipping into his inside pocket, he pulled out his special pen. It was one he'd designed and made himself, and he was very proud of it, if he did say so himself. Thumb poised on the presser, he hitched forward in his seat, craning as though to see the puzzle, while he also obscured what he was doing with his pen. The bell jangled as someone left, and a second crone stepped through the scuffed door, plate in hand. Bron's contact continued to focus on the puzzle. Bron shifted and pressed the end of his pen, dispatching a lethal dose of poison into the other man's half-full teacup. "Toasted tea cake, love." The second crone slid the plate onto the table, forcing Bron's contact to lift the newspaper. "Thanks," he muttered. The crone clucked in disapproval. "You've let your tea go cold. I'll get you some more." Before Bron could do or say anything, what could he possibly say? The old crone scooped the cup out of reach. His hand clenched to a fist under the table. Then he wished the crone to Hades and considered his other options. His contact twisted the paper around so the crossword faced Bron. "You try. I can't think of any more." He sat back, reaching for his tea cake. Bron pretended to look at the crossword while he made his choice. His garrote would be the last resort. He'd try the sedative next. The wooden door opened again, and the crone brought fresh tea for his contact. He could hardly stab the man with a syringe with her looking on, so he feigned interest in the crossword, while the crone chatted with his contact about the tea cake of all things. The man was facing death, even if he didn't know it, and his last conversation on this earth was going to be about cinnamon and the relative merits of demerara versus castor sugar. Bron huffed in mild contempt. He scanned the crossword and realised he knew an answer. Since his poison pen also worked as an ink pen, he did pride himself on a job well done with all his gadgets. He wrote in the right answer and moved on to the next. The scrape of a chair made him look up. His heart lurched. His contact was rising to his feet. He'd got engrossed in the crossword, and now the other man was leaving, and he was still hale and well, and that wouldn't do at all. "Wait," Bron spoke on instinct. His contact turned in surprise, and Bron realised he had nothing to say to delay him. He swallowed. "Don't you want your paper?" It was stupid, but it might just give him the space he needed to act. He rose, offering the sheet with one hand, while the other slid the cap off his syringe in a single practiced movement. "You can keep it," his contact replied, which wasn't what he wanted at all. "I've finished," he said, aware that he sounded suspiciously desperate. He just needed to get close enough to... "Here you go." The crone walked up to their table again as he reached out. He twisted, letting his arm fall. "You wanted the recipe," the crone continued, offering a scribbled sheet of paper to Bron's contact. A pinprick of pain burned his thigh. Bron looked down in dismay to see the tiny syringe sticking out of the side of his leg. How had that even happened? This wasn't his first assassination. Oh, and now he really had problems, because the sedative was very powerful, and he was going to... He sat down abruptly as his legs gave way, glad the seat was underneath him. Both his contact and the crone turned in surprise. "What just happened?" his contact asked, which was perhaps why their seniors wanted him dead. He wasn't the brightest spark in the fire. "I just saved your life," the crone stated. Bron's mouth fell open, but that might have been due to the sedative. "You're welcome," she continued. His contact frowned. "Mother, I've told you not to interfere." "Mother? Wait, what?" "Did you want to be injected with whatever that was?" the old biddy countered. She leaned closer, peering at Bron as though he were a creature in a zoo. "Nerve agent, I believe. I wonder if he'll get his senses back or if it's permanent." The words were curious, but her tone was utterly indifferent. "You can't do that." His contact sounded horrified, which also seemed like it should be Bron's job. "I think we just have." The other biddy walked over from the counter. "Shall I fetch the wheelbarrow?" "Auntie Dee, stop it. I can deal with him." "And spoil all our fun," the first crone replied. Bron blinked, trying to keep suddenly heavy eyes open. A roaring had started in his ears. He had to focus on breathing, which was a very unwelcome development. "You invited him. You can help me get him out of here," the second crone shouted, so loud it rattled in his head. And simultaneously was a whisper. Someone reached for him. Bron tried to fight them off, but they grabbed his wrist and wouldn't let go. "Don't fight, honey," the mother crone cooed, in exactly the same tone that she'd presented tea cakes with. "You'll only make a fool of yourself." "That ship already sailed," boomed around his brain. Laughter rattled his bones, closer then further away, like waves battering a beach. Bron didn't quite understand what had just happened, but his perfectly straightforward plan had somehow been scuppered by a couple of women old enough to be his mother. "Out the back," the first crone directed. As he was lifted like a sack of potatoes, Bron was grateful that consciousness was slipping away. He'd thought the Two Crones Cafe was twee. He'd thought he was the most deadly person in the room. Instead, he'd walked straight into a trap set by his contact and a pair of retired mafia tea ladies. He'd never live it down. If he lived. That was Two Crones by Katy Haye. If you want more stories, hit like and subscribe to be notified when a new story is posted up. Thanks for listening.